talk about a very, very important topic, and you're seeing a lot of in your work in the emergency, a lot of people coming in with anxiety in children. And now, is there a correlation with that and microbiome in our gut? And are you able to talk a little bit about that?
So 10 years ago, I was in the emergency department and a young boy came in and said he wanted to kill himself. And had been threatening suicide for a while. His parents were clearly distraught.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you hear that in an emergency department, the first thing you think is, what's happening to the boy? Is he being bullied? What have the parents done? But then you take a history and you go through the motions. And I realized that he had beautiful parents. At that point in time, I referred him on to a psychiatrist and felt that this must be an outlier. It can't be the norm.
Right.
But over the following few years, I just started seeing more and more children with anxiety and with depression and with suicidality. And now...
children as young as 6 or younger than 6 ever? Or
6 has been the youngest. 6 has been the youngest for me. But so now we see probably 1 child a day with severe depression or suicide, or a week, sorry, which is shocking now. And so that's really what pushed me towards looking for a solution several years ago. And that's how I actually stumbled across the microbiome, because we were never taught about the microbiome in school. We didn't know about it. And one thing led to another. And suddenly I went down this rabbit hole of a completely new scientific area that I and most of my colleagues hadn't heard of.
Yeah, because you're seeing this systemic rise of anxiety in kids, and just to find a root cause. But do you think it's also that we're growing up in a different environment or landscape? Do you think that has...
Yeah.
We'll talk about the microbiome and that in a second. But
it's not just the microbiome, it's definitely environment. Right. And so our children are living in a completely different environment than we did when we were kids. And there are various different factors. Some of them are linked to the microbiome, some are not, but what my research has showed me, so I started trying to find out why these children are increasing rates of anxiety in our populations. Speaking to teachers, friends of mine, anecdotally, they're telling me that it's a huge problem in schools right now. And so you suddenly start reading, and as someone who isn't a trained psychiatrist, I'm not a trained microbiome specialist, I've learnt about all of this. You suddenly start joining all the dots up from different areas, and you start realizing that there are different reasons why children are becoming anxious, and predominantly nutrition is definitely one of them. Because we've got studies which clearly tell us now that if you feed your children poorly, so processed food, white sort of beige diet, the chances of them becoming anxious or depressed or having a mental illness are high. And if you feed them nourishing food, it's low. And in fact, their studies have shown that you can treat depression or anxiety with food. Incredibly brilliant studies. In fact, incredible Australian studies which have recently been conducted. Sleep is another one. And so now we know, we always used to think that if you're anxious, you don't sleep because you're constantly thinking. We now know if you don't sleep well, you will become anxious or you will become depressed.
So it's like what does the chicken or the egg, and it's
so we now know it's absolute fact. Sleep science has exploded over the last 20 years. And it's not about how much you sleep, it's about the quality of sleep as well. And we know that children are getting worse sleep now than they've ever done before. How we move is significantly associated with anxiety. And there are again studies that are clearly showing that if the more active you are, the less likely you are to have anxiety. There are incredible studies recently were done where we could take a person like you or me who's active and make us be sedentary for a week, and that will produce symptoms of depression in us.
Absolutely, I accept that.
And you only have to think about this. When you've got your kids, how many times have you said, I've got to get these kids out for a couple of hours because they're
Oh,
just
yeah.
drunk yet?
They're like my
They
puppy.
need to run around.
Yeah.
Whereas what do kids do now? They are in front of the TV gaming
Oh,
hours at a time.
And I actually see a change for my youngest son, a change in his personality. So I'm so strict on devices. I do not like them. Like, I mean, of course they want to play, but I monitor the time, and then they're outside, and it's like, no, like, I want my love
Absolutely.
back, not my aggressive.
And you do. So all of us as parents see these changes in our children. But I think you almost need someone to tell you now that these changes, these are the things you can influence. And
Yeah.
if we influence them early, our children will
Absolutely.
grow up to not have anxiety and depression. And the fourth and probably most important factor that we've realized is it's human connection, because our children have gone from, well, not our children, we have gone from playing outside,
And
never with a
community
device in our hand,
yes.
and always with a person. You've got a person in front of you to communicate with,
Yes.
to now most communication is via text or via an online gaming portal.
Yeah.
And it's having a massive effect on children's mental health. You know, in fact, it's a funny story. My kid, he's 12, and I bought him a mobile phone, not because I think he needed one, but I didn't want him to be the only person without a phone.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, also it gives him a bit more independence.
Yeah.
And after a week or 2 weeks, he hadn't phoned anyone and was texting his friends. And I said, why haven't you phoned anyone? He always said to me, he said, Dad, we just text. I said, but 2 weeks ago, you didn't even have a phone. You've never texted in your life. And I said to him, unless you speak to your friends on the phone, I'm going to take the phone away. So it's a communication device, communicate. But those are the 4 areas that we've discovered, scientifically backed for years. What we discovered when we looked at these 4 different factors that were really having an impact on children. If I ever see a kid with anxiety or depression, clearly explaining to the parents and giving them some advice on these lifestyle factors and how they are impacting has been a mainstay of sort of treatment for these children. So probably 5 years ago or so, we started talking about these with parents, and have refined it to a point now where we've realized that the environment that the kids are in is key to how they develop. But that environment is provided by the parents. 5-year-olds and 10-year-olds don't provide them their environment, their parents do. Their parents decide what they eat. They decide how they sleep. So a parent can, if you give your child an iPad and allow the child to read or play on the iPad till 10 o'clock at night, their sleep's clearly going to be poor. How much exercise that parents do with their children, again, the environment. And so we decided that, how do we change the parents' environment? And interestingly, parents initially thought, well, it's not us, you need to be treating our children. But once parents realized that if they change their own home environment, children, and that sort of ripple down effect would just ripple down to the kids, because you can't tell a child to eat leafy greens if the parents have got a bacon and egg sandwich. It's not going to work that way.
Yes.
You can't tell the children to go to sleep early if the parents are up all night till midnight in front of the TV with a glass of wine.
You can't say to your child, get off your phone, if the parents, they're texting all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely, you hit the nail on the head there. And so we started to change the parental environment and show them what they can do to change. And it had 2 massive effects. Number one, parents themselves suddenly found that they had so much more time in their day.
Yes.
And so much more time to spend with their kids, because all these kids want, all any kids want, if you ask them truly, is quality time with their parents.
Yeah.
More than anything else.
Absolutely.
And I'd say not most parents, but many parents, and I'd say I'm guilty of this as well at times, or certainly was more in my earlier years, would be with my child and be distracted with something else at the same time. And kids can see that. They're not stupid.
Yeah.
Whereas what we did now, what I do at home, and it's what we teach, is that that will be through our program, we create time in your day so that you can then spend that time with your children. And that's had a massive effect on the mental health of children, because these children feel worthy at home because their parents are investing lots of time into them.
Yes.
And without realizing it, the kids are now connecting more because they're connecting with their parents rather than a phone. They are eating more nutritious food because that's what's being cooked in the home.
Yeah.
They're sleeping a lot better because their parents are going up to bed after dinner, and that's something that's part of our program.
Yeah.
And they are moving a lot more. There's a lot more, because there's more time.
Absolutely.
There's a lot more activity with the parents. And when we say exercise, it's not about exercising in a gym. It's anything. It could be trampolining.
Yeah.
It could be playing tag.
Yeah.
It's anything you do with your kids.
And it is such a quick, like, before I know it, it's only what, Mia's in year 7. She's going to be at university with her friends before, like, I'll blink and that will happen. So it's really it's such a sacred, special time. And what you're teaching and sharing it's actually going to just bed down beautiful memories for, you know, for the rest of our lives.
Well, you know, we've helped, I can't remember how many now, but a lot of children so far. And so writing the book, I was never going to write a book. I'm not an author, although I am beginning to be an author now.
Yeah.
But I did realize that I needed to reach a lot more people.
Yeah.
And our program is really simple. It's dead easy. There are no complex rules. But it's all about changing your environment and creating time for you and your kids. And parents have found they're more productive and happier. And their kids are more happier. And in fact, you just said it just now that these days will be gone soon. So you can't waste time now. You know, just spend the time with your kids, because that's why we have them. To spend time with them when they're kids.
Exactly. I know. And you know, these lifestyle changes that you talk about will help a person with eczema or any other inflammatory, or not inflammatory, I'm using the wrong words, but any condition that's long-term chronic. And again, not the right vocab, but will help everybody.
But they will, without doubt, because ultimately these lifestyle factors are all at their heart, again, focusing on the person, but they're having their effect through how they affect the microbiome. Amazing. And so what you're doing, so when you connect with humans and you create time, you're decreasing stress. Mm-hmm. When you eat nutritionally, you're feeding your microbiome what it wants. When you sleep, you're nourishing your microbiome. And when you move, we now know that people who are more active have different microbiomes from people who are less active. And so without doubt, you will lead a healthier life. So these are just 4 tenets of good health. When I talk about anxiety, to be honest, what I've just discussed could be used for any chronic condition. I just have a specific focus on young kids with anxiety, because I go to work because I want to make kids smile. Yeah. And when you can't make a kid smile, because, you know, when I fix their arm, they smile. I can't make an anxious kid not be anxious within half an hour. It's just not possible. No. But over the course of time, and interestingly, when they change the environment, within weeks, their kids change. No. And it's stunning, within weeks. And the time when I decided that I absolutely have to continue this work, it was the first time my mum came back to me and she said to me that, I don't know what you've done, but you've given me my boy back. I know. And for me, that was it. I thought, I've got to do this because I've given you your boy back, and I have to do this forever now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you know, I was so tired after I got Mia back on track. And yes, I'd made the creams and was helping her. But when I saw other kids struggling, I was like, I have to share what I've learned. I have to make these products available as well. So it's just, it's funny how life, but I'm so fulfilled and so grateful for my journey, and likewise with yourself. And when your book is ready, I would love to share it with everybody. And so I will send an email to everybody that is watching this.
I would appreciate that. So with what you're doing with regards to Mia, I think there's a huge difference between what you're doing and what your audience will get from a doctor.
Yeah.
Because, you know, although we've been trained, we don't have first-hand experience of in the same way that a mother like you has. And so, honestly, if you have had a real challenge and you know the pain that you've been through, and you found solutions that work, and you have empathy, therefore.
My heart bleeds when I hear another parent's pain.
Absolutely. So you have to share it. You absolutely have to share it, and people will hopefully gain a huge amount from what you have to share with them. Because if they're in the same position you were in a few years ago.
Yes. Oh, I know. It may be exactly what they need to hear at that moment. And if not now, then a little bit later down the track, but you're still hearing it. And I think it's kind of good that I'm an accountant, because it's all new to me. So I go into everything with a beginner's mind, and it's like, what? I don't understand, and why? And this has worked for my daughter, and that's why I'm sharing it. And it's so wonderful that it's backed by science, and what you're doing now, and just the ripple benefits of making these changes will not only help their eczema, it'll help the rest of their lives, the whole family's life, actually. So
It will.
thank you so much, Tim. And
you're welcome.